Last night I dreamed about my father. I hardly knew him. I have an older brother and 4 older sisters. They knew him, but I really didn't. When my father was sober, he was good to us. He would show me things and tell me funny stories. But as I got older, things changed. In his younger days, he had been a jewelry maker. He was pretty good, I guess, because people were always coming over to our place, wanting him to make silver necklaces and rings. I remember once a white lady was traveling across the reservation and drove all the way out to our place because she said the man at the trading post had been telling what fine silver and turquoise jewelry my father made. She said she wanted to buy a Navajo ring for her little grandson back in Texas. She smiled when she saw me hiding next to the door. She said I was just about the size of her boy back in Texas. My father told her he would make her a special ring for her grandson, using my hand as a guide for how small to make it. That woman really loved that ring. She even took a picture of my dad sitting at his bench with me standing next to him holding up that ring. She was so happy when I handed it to her that she hugged me and kissed me on the cheek before she drove off. A few weeks later, we got a thank you letter, and in the envelope was a copy of the picture she took of me and my father. Oh, he was a real artist. When he would look at a piece of turquoise, he could already see the necklace where it buckled. Sometimes, when he was cutting the silver or grinding the stones, he would make up beautiful songs and sing in Navajo. He always sang when he was happy and working. I like to remember him that way. Life had been so good, but that was when I was very little. I don't know why or when, but one day my father just stopped making jewelry, and he never sang anymore either. At some point, he started drinking more and more. Sometimes, he would disappear for several days at a time because of that. We never knew where he went, but eventually he would come back home. Sometimes he would be sorry. Sometimes he would just be angry. Sometimes he would hit us. When I was 12, I was the only kid left at home, so Mom sent me to live at the boarding school in the city. And that was good in some ways because I didn't have to see all the bad things at home, but I worried about my mother every day. In the summers, she and I spent a lot of time talking about everything, but mostly she liked to talk about the way things were when she was young. My father hardly ever smiled and never talked much about anything. I remember one summer a few years before she died. It was just me and her hauling water to the cows. One cow, a big old round one, was going to have a calf soon, so Mom had been watching her for a few days just waiting. When we got out there, that cow was lying down trying to have her calf. The tiny little legs were sticking out. Mom hopped out of the truck and quickly ran out over there. She reached up inside that cow and worked for a long time to pull that little calf out. I just stood there and watched. When she finally got the calf pulled out, it was dead. That made me sad, especially after my mother had worked so hard to save its life. The rest of the day I was feeling terrible, and she said that we should go to town and maybe get some ice cream too. So we went to the grocery store and paid. My mother bought a few things and I got an ice cream sandwich. Walking to the truck, my mother stopped. There by the sliding glass doors was my father, dirty, stumbling, in the same clothes he had on when he left the week before, and holding his hand out white people asking for money. We both froze. I looked at my father and I burned with pain and embarrassment, dropping the ice cream onto the pavement. After a moment, my mother told me to get into the truck, and then we drove off. He never saw us, and my mother never turned to glance his direction. A little way down the road, I noticed a tear running down her cheek, but she never said a word. What a strong woman she was. But just a few years later, she got really sick and had to be taken to a hospital in Phoenix. We were all there the night she died. I say we, but I mean my brothers and sisters and me. We had brought our father with us, but when my mother slipped away at 9:37 p.m., he was passed out in the park across the street from the hospital. After we had brought her home to bury, my older brother drove back to Phoenix to get him when he was released from jail. A few weeks later, it was decided that the best thing for me to do was to go and live off with the Mormon family. The Hamlins were good to me, but I didn't have any Navajo friends in Salt Lake. There was no one that knew or understood that just a little boy that used to be me. Sometimes, I felt even more alone in that big city than I ever did as a child, herding the sheep in the summer. That was a very long time ago. I can never see myself leaving my life in the city. There are happy memories of my younger days between the four sacred mountains, but there are ghosts there too. I don't ever go back to Titus or the reservation at all. Only one of my sisters still lives there. The others have all moved off too. The last time I went home was a few years ago, the day I was contacted by the Navajo police. I already knew the reason for the call. They needed someone to positively identify a body found in the desert that they believed to be my father. I've been preparing myself many years for that call. When I finally heard the news, I was at peace. We had tried to get him to live differently, but we would not allow anyone to help him. My father's life ended just as I knew it would. I wanted to cry, but I couldn't seem to shed any tears. Several months after he died, I finally opened the sealed package that contained the personal things that were found on his body. Inside the envelope were only two things: a corn-pollen pouch and a worn-out leather wallet. It surprised me. I didn't think he even remembered how to pray with corn-pollen. In his wallet was a torn lottery ticket and an old photograph. One that the lady in Texas had sent to us so long ago. It was damaged with age and very faded, but seeing that image caused a lifetime of held-back emotion to wash over me. And finally, I wept. The tears I felt that day were for lost loved ones in that photograph. My father, the singing jewelry maker, and that chubby little boy that used to be me.